black thing go from left to right, and I thought, I'm going to die out here. No one's ever going to know. I couldn't believe what my eyeballs were showing me. I'll never forget how evil the eyes were. It was horrible. I mean, I've never seen nothing that evil.
It ran towards me at a rate that I can't even explain. Turned and stared at me, and this look of, I just want to kill you. I want to say it was human, but it wasn't.
He was yelling at me to grab a gun. I was like, for what? He said, just grab a gun. And there's footprints all the way to the door of my house. It had went inside my garage, all the way to the door.
911, what are you reporting?
Jesus Christ, you better...
Sir?
Zia!
Hello?
Get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9", I don't know.
Do you see him now, sir?
Yes, I'm looking right at him.
Uh-oh.
You're listening to Sasquatch Chronicles. Check us out online at sasquatchchronicles.com. If you've had an encounter, email me. My email address is wes@sasquatchchronicles.com. Welcome to the show, everyone. Thanks for being here tonight. Got a great show planned for you tonight. Going to be talking to Frederick, who comes to us from New Hampshire. And Frederick actually had a very fascinating account. He was out on the... Well, I'll let him tell the story. But basically, he ran into a Sasquatch that looked more like a baboon. And you guys have heard that on the show before, where I've had witnesses on. They're expecting to see the Patterson-Gimlin creature. And a lot of times, that's not what they see. And that's definitely the case with Frederick and what he saw. Should be a great show tonight. I'll also be bringing on Tony Merkel from the Confessionals. I know I ran out of time last week. I promise you he will make an appearance on the show tonight. I will bring him on after Frederick. If you've had an encounter, then you'd like to be on the show, shoot me an email. My email address is wes@sasquatchchronicles.com. And if you get a chance, please check out sasquatchchronicles.com. You can become a member, get additional shows. Very cool website, so if you get a free moment, please check it out, sasquatchchronicles.com. Let's jump into it tonight. I want to welcome Frederick to the show. Frederick, thanks for coming on.
Ed, thanks for having me on, Wes.
Yeah, well, thanks for coming on. I appreciate you being here, man, and taking the time to share your encounter. I know your encounter took place in New Hampshire, and it's very fascinating to me because, you know, a lot of times when people, after they run into these creatures, they anticipate seeing Patty, you know, from the Patterson-Gimlin film. And I would say most of the time that's not what people see. But if you would you kind of start from the beginning and walk us into your encounter? Tell us what happened.
My encounter took place in a small town called Redstone, New Hampshire, and which is in between North Conway and Conway. So it was a fall day. I don't know exactly when. It was either late September, early October, but the weather was extremely good. Must have been temperatures of 70, 75, which is not too rare in New Hampshire. And the foliage was good, so I decided to go for a hike. I grew up in White Mountains. Woods is my backyard, so going on a hike, and I'm about an hour to almost 2 hours deep into the woods when I come to this clearing area where the power lines run through, and about 200 to 250 feet ahead of me, I see this humanoid-looking thing standing up by a telephone pole, kind of scratching himself. And at first, I'm thinking, "Wow, that's really a tall bear." And I get a better look at it, and I notice it's a rusty red color. And we don't have red bears in New Hampshire, so I'm scanning up the body. And I'm like, that looks like a person. Because it's the body, it's just like a human, except very huge. And as I'm going up further, I see the head, and that's where all human aspects of this thing ends. It looked like a baboon was stuck on top of a person's body. The thing must have been at least 10 and a half feet tall, if not more. The hair on its arms was at least 8 inches long. You could see the muscle on its arms, its back, the side of its back. Because I only got a profile view of it where I was standing there. Charcoal gray skin. You could see it under the hair. Its hands looked like the size of a frisbee. They were so huge. All I can attribute it to what it looked like a jacked up basketball player is what it looked like to me. Just the size of this thing. So I kind of, was frozen, standing in the woods, looking at this thing as it just, I don't know if it was swaying or if it was scratching its back. What it looked like to me is if it was scratching its back on a telephone pole. It was a combination of fear and amazement at once, all rolled up. If that makes any sense whatsoever.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
What seems like that took forever was probably only 30 seconds when this thing just kind of let out a growl sound. I don't know if that's what really was a growl or if it was a pleasure sound, like if you rub a dog's belly, it makes a kind of sound. That's kind of what it made, and it snapped me out of my shock, and I just kind of slowly backed up and walked off. And once I heard noise, the sounds of birds, the crickets, and that such, I ran. I just ran as fast as I could until my feet hit pavement. But I'll never forget that encounter. Like I said, it'll be 25 years this fall. It was scary. I was scared. I didn't know what I was looking at. You as a kid, you're told monsters don't exist. They're not real. Those things on your bed, they're not real. But there it was. I'm standing in the woods, looking at something that you're told is not real. It doesn't exist. Well, am I going crazy? I'm not going crazy because what I'm seeing is right there, right in front of me. I see it. I know what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, Frederick, how far away from you was the creature? You're looking at this thing.
It was about 250 feet, maybe. I'm judging because by the distance between two telephone poles. I was at one sort of, and it was down past another one. This is at high tension power lines that we were down at.
Yeah, that's terrifying.
It could have been further. It could have been closer. I'm not really good with the distance, but I want to say maybe 250, 300 feet away.
Yeah, and a baboon on a man's body, that's probably too close. I'm sure it felt like you were too close at the moment.
It was definitely too close for my comfort. Did it notice me? I don't think it did. And if it had, it didn't really care that I was there. Then I guess it didn't. It never looked over at me. It never paid any attention to me whatsoever. And like I said, once it made that noise, I was out of there at like lightning.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I would have been too. Now, when you were looking at it, you said the face was more of a baboon, like you were looking at a baboon. Yeah. Interesting.
Just like looking at a baboon, except for the coloring. I could see, the skin. It didn't appear to have any kind of hair on its face whatsoever. It had it on the top of its head and down the back, and on its body, except for its hands and face. I can see just from the profile of it. It definitely had that baboon snout to it, and the skin color was like a charcoal gray. But the hair was definitely like a rusty cinnamon color red.
Yeah, and the rest of the body, you said it looked more man-like?
Yeah. It was. If I didn't see the head, I would have sworn it was either a human out there, a really big human. I mean, every feature on it was, if you took, I don't want to say, I don't know, Schwarzenegger, maybe kind of like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, but bigger than that, because this thing was very tall, and the muscles on it was just huge. Everything was huge on it.
Yeah, The Rock's a pretty big guy, so that says how big that thing was, if it's bigger than him.
Yeah, bigger than him, yeah.
And so when you got home, did you tell anyone about what you had seen?
I've never told anybody until this past year. I just, to me, what I saw, it didn't register. It was nothing that I could attribute it to. When I was a kid, I've seen the Patty film. I based my Bigfoot off of Patty, and that did not look anything like Patty. So what I didn't know what I saw, and I was not about to tell anybody. I didn't want to be labeled, the crazy guy in the woods seeing a monster. So I kept quiet and started listening to your podcast. And there was a gentleman on there, and forgive me, I don't recall the specific episode, but he had talked about seeing something with a similar baboon face, and I was like, no way, no way somebody else saw this. And I looked more, and these things are different. They're out there. What they are, I don't know. But and so I decided to tell my story to my uncle, and he listened, and he's like, could be. There's stranger things out in the woods, so I don't doubt it.
Yeah, it's fascinating that you saw this type of creature. I think what you went through, Frederick, is what a lot of people go through. As I find this a lot, especially down south, is they're expecting, people don't believe in Bigfoot. They think it's all nonsense. And then they run into it.
Right.
And the part that shocks them is they're expecting to see the Patterson-Gimlin creature.
Right.
And 9 times out of 10, that's not what they see. They see something completely different. And I have run into a lot of people who've run into this baboon-looking. It's back when I was talking about the different types of these things. And sometimes people report them looking like a baboon. You didn't see a tail or anything on this creature, did you?
No, no. Like I said, it was all human-looking features until I got until the head, and that's what literally blew my mind seeing that thing. I could not imagine what this thing, where it came from, what it was. I thought I was either losing my mind or I walked into some sort of parallel universe where monsters are running around. I didn't know if I was going to make it out of the woods, to be honest with you. I mean, if that thing, looking at the legs, a sprint runner, how the calf muscles, you can tell that they're built for speed. This thing had that. But it was double. I mean, it was just a huge leg, and you could tell it was built for speed. So if it wanted to, it could have easily run me down with no effort.
Yeah, it's strange when you see these creatures because everything seems to be over-exaggerated, like muscles, or
definitely
people talk about the shoulders or the hands or their arms. It's like I was talking about on the last show, I had a guy, well, he didn't come on, but I was talking about it, and I hope he comes on, but it's a crop duster. And he was just mowing passes, crop dusting, saw these deer come out of the wood line. It appeared to be running for their lives. So he makes another pass, and when he made another pass, he ran into this. He described it as kind of a big ape-looking thing. And one of the comments he had made, because it actually caught up with the deer. It was mowing down corn and everything else to get to the deer. Mm-hmm. And when it got to the deer, one of the comments he had made, and I find it fascinating because you just said the same thing, he said the hands were huge. He couldn't believe how he said frying pans. And it actually snapped the deer's neck and and killed it. But it's fascinating when you hear, because everything seems to be very over exaggerated with these creatures was, the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, they look kind of clownish looking, like it's not you're looking at something that's not real, but it's there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. And even in my own encounter, I talked about them looking cartoonish, and what I meant by that was they're just everything. You know, like in a cartoon, everything's way over exaggerated. Like I'm sure Popeye's forearms aren't really that big in real life, but everything's just over exaggerated, and that's kind of what it's like when you run into one of these things.
Yeah, it was just unreal. I guess is the term that I wanna use. It's very unreal. Just looking at it and just seeing this massive looking thing out in the woods, just kind of standing there. And like I said, whether it was scratching its back or if it had something in its sight that is going to barrel after, I don't know. I wasn't about to hang around and find out what it was doing. You know, I wanted, once I, snapped out of it, I get out. I didn't want to.
Well, I think that you made the right decision, Frederick, on that, because a lot of times when people run into the baboon-looking ones, a lot of times people describe them not quite as big, but they're very aggressive. Very aggressive.
That's what I've heard. Yeah,
every encounter I've ever had where someone said, hey, it looked like a baboon, generally is a pretty aggressive encounter, but there might have been enough distance between you and it to where it didn't really, there was no sense in being aggressive. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It was scary. It really was. And the hands on this thing, it's just, it could have picked up a deer in its hand and not had trouble whatsoever. One hand could have easily picked it up. Crushed its back, just if a deer had come along, like say a buck, it could have, I picture this thing being able to just reach out, grab it by the back, and crush its spine with no trouble. Kind of like we would do with a beer can in my hand, just crush it. Once it's empty, we could just crush that can. That's what this thing could have done with a deer with no trouble.
Yeah, I believe it. Did you ever go back to that area after this encounter?
I have not. I've got a buddy and we do, I don't want to say research, I'm no research guy, no investigator, but we do have a little group. It's just the two of us. We go out into the woods and we do look for them. We did have one guy call us and say he had something on his property. We went up and took some pictures, had a couple strange things happen. We get up to one area and all these trees in a line, as far as you could see, bent over at the same level. Like I said, as far as you could see, we didn't follow it. We get up there to a point, and every single one of us just like, it's time to go. There's my buddy and the guy that called, and we get up into the area, and all at the same time said, I'm creeped out. We got to go. I don't know what that was, whether there was something up in that area at that time, but this feeling of dread and we got to go.
Yeah. And that's usually when that happens. You want to listen to your gut. But, I always warn people to be careful. You saw it at 250 feet. Imagine seeing it 10 feet away. And,
oh, my gosh. I would have died of a heart attack.
When people go out there and they look for these things, I always tell them to go armed, just in case. Just in case.
Yeah,
you never know what's going to happen.
Armed. Yeah. Right. Even if you don't run into these, it could be something out there. We've had rabbit, bobcats, and things up here that have attacked people. So we be safe. That's basically what we we do. We want to be safe and keep an eye out for each other. So I don't know. This thing, was it a Bigfoot? And from what I've been listening to, there are different types. But oh my gosh, back then, 25 years ago, that I knew of Bigfoot, but this, it wasn't, to me, that wasn't Bigfoot. I didn't know what it was. We had the internet, but what was I going to look up? Monsters? I didn't know how to do a search then, or even where to begin as to what to find out.
Yeah,
so
and
I never told anybody.
Yeah, no, I can understand that. And I think in New Hampshire, I think more goes on there. People are pretty tight-lipped up there. And I say up there,
Yes,
it's
they
more
are.
on the East Coast. But people are pretty tight-lipped in New Hampshire. That whole northern region, man. It's it's hard to get people.
Maine.
Yeah, it's hard to get a.
Yeah.
I know there's more that goes on in Vermont than what people say, but no one ever talks about it. And same thing with New Hampshire. A lot of the areas up there, I'm convinced way more goes on up there. But like you said, you run across this thing. It doesn't look like Patty. That's what you've seen. And it's like,
Right.
well, what is this thing? And I think that's a lot of people's reactions when they run into. I've talked to so many people, I can't even tell you, down in the South that run into like a chimpanzee looking thing. And they'll say, they were expecting to see Patty, and, what the hell is this thing? And it's not really, we see Patty and she's just kind of strolling off into the distance, just trying to get away. And most of the time, that's not the way it works with these things. They don't just stroll off and head off into the sunset. You come across one, especially the baboon-looking ones, and I think you can run into real problems with them because I don't think they have any. I think they're very short-tempered and have no qualms about killing someone. That's my opinion.
I tend to think so too. I agree. I agree with that. From what I've heard, they're not something you want to really mess with.
No, it's curious though. If it was scratching its back on the pole, that would kind of that'd be interesting if that's what it was doing. You know what I mean?
I know. I had thought of that, recently. Not at the time, but recently. Like, man, if I had gotten back, I could have gotten some hair samples, or even possibly skin samples off that pole. But no, I wasn't going back. No.
I don't blame you. I don't know that I would have went back either. So I can't give you a hard time about that because I probably wouldn't have gone back either.
Yeah, no, I do plan a expedition up there at some point because I got to do it. It's for my own sanity, I guess, just to go back and be in that area and put it behind me. Because it's still, I still get a little nervous about it. My parents live up there, and we go up to visit, and I'll drive by that. It's all changed up there now. There's more roads, more development. But, just driving by the road to the access point to get out there, I'm just like, man.
Well, and I think that, and I think that the back scratching thing is interesting, but I think, there's all kinds of theories why they would follow the power lines. And I think the simplest thing to me, what makes sense is it's the easiest path to travel. It's cleared out.
I thought too. Easiest way, because they go up there with equipment, and they clear that area so vehicles can go up and fix the lines, and it's easy for the animals to maneuver. Deer, whatever, going through that area, and it could have been hunting. It could have very well been hunting, and that's why I never even bothered to look in my direction. It had spotted a deer, and what I attribute to scratching its back could have just easily have been its swaying, getting ready to run after whatever it saw.
Yeah, it's hard to say. At least you saw it from a distance. It wasn't like you came around the corner and bam, there it is, 10 feet away from you. You know what I mean? Especially an ugly one like that. At least you would hope to run into a halfway human-looking thing. You know what I mean? As opposed to a baboon. In my opinion, a baboon's one of the ugliest creatures out there. And then you make it 10 feet tall.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think regular baboons are ugly, but this thing was just, 250, 300 feet, you're plenty close enough for my pleasure.
Yeah, I agree with you.
When we were younger, we would play paintball, and my buddy and my brother, we would build these forts down in the woods, and we had gone out. It was February when we were going down out to just put them together and whatnot. And we had one. It was a pretty good structure. We had them built out of 4-inch pine trees that we cut down out in the woods. And we get down there, and the fort was destroyed. The pine tree snapped in half, and everything pushed over. There was a little snow on the ground, and any kind of markings were dug up. It was all, strewn around. Like if there's going to be footprints, they were strewn around. The tree limbs were thrown 50 feet in all directions. We were my buddy and my brother like, wow, what happened down here? We thought it was like, homeless people wrecking it. But then we're like, why would they wreck it? It's a perfectly good shelter for them. They could have, used it. They could have slept in it and whatnot. So we rebuilt it. We cut down more trees and built another one. And we're like, you know what? We're going to come out here tonight and we're going to see, if we can catch this jerk that's destroying it. So we're walking down this path, and it was February, and it was my brother was in front of me, I was in the middle, and my buddy was behind me, and we had this lantern up on a pole, so it looked like one person walking down. When all of a sudden this blood-curdling scream, like I have never to this day ever heard again, and it was. You feel it reverberate through your chest. And the next thing I know, I hear this kung. My buddy's 50 feet gone. He's running. He's booking back to the house. I look at my brother and go, we got to go. So we start running, and I hear this through the woods crashing sound. And then it just kind of stops and runs back. I don't know what it was. I think that it might have thought there was only one and it was trying to run down my buddy. And then when it heard our footsteps running, it backed off because it knew that there was more than one and it was going to be a little bit more than a one-person takedown. But I don't know what it was to this day. I have no idea. But to feel the sheer volume and, like I said, the reverberation through your chest, let's get the hell out of it.
Yeah, have you ever heard anything online that came close to what you heard?
There was, on your show, there was one that came pretty darn close to it, and I wish I'd remember the episode, but I listened to it. I listened to your show at work, and I have my headphones in. I'm a custodian, and I hear the scream. We went from your plan, and I hear the scream, and I had to sit down. It was just. It took me right back to that moment. It's like, I
wonder if that was a Michigan screams. I don't have them queued up right now, otherwise I'd play it for you. But there's some Michigan screams that I've played in the past, and it's very haunting to hear it because it doesn't sound like a person, but it kind of does, and it doesn't sound like an animal, but it kind of does. As vague as that is,
it's dead on how you describe it because it's in between. But it's louder than anything. It's louder than any animal or any human should be able to do. If that, I don't know if that makes sense. It's just it's louder than it's just when you feel that kind of a noise from something. It's unhumanly how it does that. I can't describe it any better than that. I don't know, what animal could do that other than like a lion or an elephant with just the sheer volume from that thing.
Is this similar to what you heard?
Yeah, that was it.
That's what you heard, huh? Yeah, I heard that in Texas when I was in Texas. And it does. I mean, when you hear it like people hear it on the podcast, it doesn't do it justice. You almost have to hear it in person because it doesn't. The tone is right, but the volume is off. And what I mean by how you said, how you can feel it.
Capture it.
Yeah. I heard that in Texas, and I about fell over when I first heard it. I was like, holy crap, man, we got to get out of here. Kind of like what you just said with you and your brother. I was like, we got to get out of here.
We got to get out of here. Yeah, because, you hear it, and you're immediate, it's not a person. It's some type of predator. It doesn't matter what it is. You got to go. You got to book it. It's coming for you. And when we heard it coming through those woods, man,
But it has
I
a
thought
weird.
for sure it's going to get my buddy.
Yeah, it has a weird tone to it. When you think, Frederick, I mean, it kind of has a. If I played that for someone who didn't believe in Bigfoot, someone might go, that sounds like a person. But it doesn't sound like a person, and it doesn't sound like an animal. There's something different about it.
Yes, definitely something different. And like you said, when you play it through a recording, you're not getting the feel.
You're right.
The pressure from it. It's almost if you ever been to a dragway, you get the pressure from a jet car. You feel that. You feel it in your chest. Well, that's what we felt when we're there. You just feel that concussion. I guess is what I'm looking for.
Yeah, it's like
from the scream.
Yeah. And this isn't a great illustration, but it's like listening to Metallica, them being at a Metallica concert and being in front of the speaker as they're playing, you know. It's night and day. Yeah, I get it. I completely get it, you know, and it is terrifying. That's fascinating. You heard that. You know, like I said, I've talked to very few people that have actually heard that type of scream. Makes you wonder what it was doing. Like if you guys were setting up a shelter and it was just kind of pissed, it was a territorial, get out of here type of scream at you.
Yeah, it could have been. But here's the thing, because where we were building these little forts, we had a major highway go behind this area, and it wasn't a huge wooded area. It was maybe 2 football fields, if that, a football field and a half possibly was the size of it. And then it was Route 16 was running behind it, and then on the other side of that was the field for high school. But our high school does border National Forest property. So could it have been crossing the road, coming over into that area? For what purpose? I don't know. Because there'd be nothing there for it to get unless you grab dogs or cats or something. My thinking is maybe this was a juvenile that had gone on its own and is trying to set up territory, and it was picking the wrong area.
Yeah, it could be. It could be. It's a little unnerving. It's that close to civilization, but you find that a lot, you know, like here in Washington State, because I know a lot of the areas where someone will call me and say, hey, I had an encounter here, and I'm always shocked. I'm like, wow, that's really close to a major freaking city. And so it is. Yeah, it's unnerving. It's that close, you know what I mean?
Yep. What draws them out to civilization like that is all I can think of is they're getting food shortage, so they've got to come in and scrounge, get it from whatever they can at that point.
Yeah, it's hard to say. It's hard to say. What do you think Sasquatch is, Frederick? What's your own personal opinion?
Wow. I've listened to your show. I've heard different things. I guess my opinion is, and I could sound way out there, but that's okay. I think they were once possibly the guardians of the forest for Native Americans, and once white men came over and we started slaughtering, Native Americans, they kind of lost the power to control these things. So they became wild and then free, and the Native Americans have lost control of them. I do think that they are more than a damn dirty ape running through the woods. I think they have some sort of spirituality to them. Just listening to different encounters, different things people say that these things are capable of doing, there's something more to them than just being a monkey running in the woods.
I agree. So are you thinking it's more of an animal or more of a humanoid?
I think it's, I don't know. Maybe the patty is more of an animal type of thing, but these other ones, I don't know. I think they're more spiritual. whether it be demonic or what, but they're not friendly. There's nothing about them that's any kind of friendliness to them at all. These baboon ones, the dog men, for example. No, I think they're some kind of a spiritual being that, the Native Americans used to be able to control, and now they've lost control, and they seem to just.
Yeah, you may not be too far off. May not be too crazy in your ideas. I've been working on getting Mick back on the show. There's two brothers I always talk about. I'm sure you've heard me talk about him, Frederick, but the two brothers, and there's Matt and there's Mick. And I've always worried about Mick because Mick, he just doesn't fear anything. I mean, the guy is just freaking fearless. And Matt, I don't want to say one has their head on their shoulders better than the other one. I think if I was to talk my way out of a situation, I'd want Matt. If I was going to fight my way out of a situation, I'd want Mick. But Mick still lives there. And I know he wants to come on the show, but he's worried about what people will think of him. But he would agree with everything you just said. And he's told me a lot of strange things to where people can mock and laugh all they want. But he's told me, you start throwing around Jesus Christ's name, these things tend to scatter. They will leave you alone. Yeah. And it makes you wonder why. Why is that? If I got a grizzly bear in my front yard, I can scream Jesus Christ all I want. That grizzly bear ain't going nowhere. You know what I mean?
It doesn't care. It doesn't care what you call it.
Exactly. It could care less. Yeah. I could crack open the Bible and start reading scriptures. That grizzly bear doesn't care. But why is it with these things? Yeah, why is it with these things? I've heard that so many times where people fall down, start praying, and these things scatter. I don't know what to make of that. I really don't know what to make of that. So you may not be too far off. You may not be as crazy as an idea as you might think. No one really knows what they are. It's funny, you always have the people who got everything figured out. They'll be first to make fun of you and, oh, come on, it's an ape. Everyone's got it figured out. Exactly. But you start questioning those people.
Experts.
Yeah, experts. Yeah, I love experts because I love to take apart everything they say like a jerk.
No, you're not a jerk because how can somebody be an expert on something that they may have seen once or twice? And they don't have it in the basement. They don't have this thing that they're out every single day studying, following the behavior, knowing what their social structure is. You cannot be an expert. You can theorize. I'll give you that, but do not call yourself an expert because you're not. You're only fooling yourself.
Yeah, and that's the frustrating part. That's why, I don't really have any problems if someone says they're a Bigfoot researcher. I think people get lost into thinking I have a hard time with the term Bigfoot research, but it mainly comes from Bigfoot researchers. Is the most of the time the people I get along better with skeptics than I do with Bigfoot researchers, the ones you hear about all the time, because they're so arrogant on what they say. They got everything figured out. You ask them any questions and they got an answer for everything. But when you really start dissecting their answers, they don't have anything figured out. None of them do.
Right. They don't.
And
they don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. And once you have the mindset you have everything figured out, that's the day you should probably get out of this field because there's always something to learn, and it comes from eyewitnesses like you and people who are willing to come on and share their encounters and talk about some of the strange things. That's why, different types. I would have never even talked about different types if it wasn't for witnesses like yourself that come forward and was like, hey, it didn't look like Patty. Didn't look like a monkey. Right. It looked like a baboon. No. And I've had a few of those on the show. Yeah, and it makes sense that there would be different types of these things, right? Because, something that's acclimated to like Washington State living in the mountains probably isn't going to do too well down in Florida in the swamps or down in Texas in the swamps. It's two different animals. They could be the same, but I mean two different categories of the same animal, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Right. It's like, I don't want to compare it to humans, but they're similar. I mean, we have different races. Why can't these things?
Yeah, and you're right. And I don't want to compare them to apes because I generally agree with you on that. I don't think it's an ape. Or I don't think it's a monkey. There's something very much more to these things than that. But having said that, an ape and a baboon, a gorilla and a baboon, you're talking apples and oranges. still from the same tree line, but you're talking apples and oranges on what you're going to run into. And I kind of think it's the same thing with these. I think in some areas they can be more aggressive. I think in some areas, if you would have been closer than 250 feet, you probably would have got to know that Sasquatch pretty well, because I guarantee it probably would have came at you.
Yep, I think I would have ended up a 4011, gone, never to be found again. Somebody would have come along and found my truck in the parking lot, and that would have been the end of that. They would have been searching for me. I've been on milk bottles for God knows how long.
Yeah, thank God you weren't. Yeah. And I always worry when I hear of missing people. It's like they found the car and the guy walked off. It's like, well, where did the guy walk off to? And I always worry when I hear some of that stuff, and I'm just glad that you got a chance to look at it, but at a distance, you know what I mean? It wasn't an up close and personal, because I don't think it would have gone well with that type of creature where you're talking baboon. It looked like a baboon in the face. I've never once ever had anyone say anything good about that type of encounter. In fact, I will say probably 100%, except for your encounter, 100% of the encounters I've heard where it's a baboon-looking creature, it's usually aggressive. Well. Yeah, it's usually very aggressive.
Yeah.
And I think distance.
Distance played a huge key.
Yeah, I'm so glad you shared it, Frederick. I really appreciate you coming on. It's a fascinating account to me, because I love hearing those type of encounters to where it doesn't look like Patty, it didn't look like a human, it didn't look like a gorilla, and it looked more like a baboon. I've had very few of them on the show, but I have had them on the show. And it's fascinating to me. It really is. The whole encounter is fascinating to me.
Well, I thank you for having me on. I enjoy listening to your podcast. Every week I tune in and listen.
Well, I appreciate it, man.
So, you do a great service. You listening to your show is what encouraged me to come forward and share my encounter. Because to be honest with you, I don't think if I had come across your podcast, I never would have told anybody. I would have thought it was just me. I was the only guy that's seen this thing. But knowing that there are other people that have seen these things, and you said it once before, if you have 1,000 people that have seen this thing, and you could say half of those have misinterpreted it, so you get 500 people. 500 people aren't lying.
That was a doc that said that to me one time. And it's funny you say that, because I think of him, John Bennernagel. He said that to me one time. He said, Wes, if you take all of the people you've had on the show, he goes, forget about the people who didn't come on the show, just the people on the show. If one person's telling the truth, we got a major problem out there. And his point was, not everyone's going to be, you can only go with the person misidentified. They saw a bear only so many times. And usually within 2 or 3 minutes of talking to someone, you can throw that theory out the window, because what they're describing, like yourself, what you're describing in details is not a bear. And I always love that about John. John always encouraged me. He was like, hey, keep having people on. And if it's weird, have them on, because, someone else probably saw it. And here's a scientist telling me, and he's right. He's 100% right. Let's say 99% of everyone's full of crap. If 1% is telling the truth, we have major problems out there in the forest.
Exactly. I guess that's what I want people to understand, is there's something other than bears, cougars, mountain lions, whatever you have it. There's something more out there that you just need to be aware of. Don't stop going in the woods. Don't stop camping. Enjoy it, but just be aware.
And that's it. You hit it right on that, Frederick. That's exactly it. That's what I've been trying to preach. You said it better than I did. Usually I mumble through my words, but that's basically it. Just be careful. When you're out there, be careful. In your case, you talked about the rabid bobcats. I'll take my chances with a rabid bobcat over a Sasquatch any day, especially one that looks like a baboon. I'll take my chances with the cat.
Yeah. I had the Goldilocks experience, I guess. It was at the right distance. The whole scenario played out perfectly, because I came out and it was unbothered. It didn't, I didn't disturb it, whatever it was doing, and it didn't bother me. So if I ever have another experience, that's what I'd like to have. I don't want to. Hopefully, knock on wood, I'll never have any kind of an encounter where I'm going to be in trouble. But I will keep going out. I'm not. It's become an addiction. I want to know what these things are.
Yeah, and I get that.
Why they're here, what they're doing, and just educate people. Let them know that there's something out there, and you need to be aware. That's pretty much what I want people to know.
Yeah, and it's this weird thing after you have an encounter, Frederick, to where I think I hear this a lot from people. They'll say, well, what's the problem with that guy? He ran into this. Now he's out there looking for them. But if you can't speak to that unless you've had an encounter, and I completely get where you're coming from. And I was the same way. As much as I didn't want to go out, I ended up going back out. I'm not comfortable out there. I'm not happy about being out there. I'll go out in the woods under protest, but I'm very uncomfortable being out there unless I'm armed to the teeth. And even then, I don't know how comfortable I am. But I get it. Wanting to go back out, being curious, wanting to know the answers, because there's no real answers to what this thing is. That's why I like to ask people, what do you think Sasquatch is? Because it's one of those questions to where there's no wrong answer. Someone could, you can say aliens, and you might be right. You could say they're
exactly. You never know.
The Nephilim. Yeah, you could be right. You could say it's a monkey out there. Yeah, you could be right. There's really no wrong answer to. And I get that you could be right thing from Ron Moorhead. I always think of him because I used to give him a hard time about his theories all the time, and I would say, Ron, they're this. And he would say, yeah, you could be right. And he used to drive me nuts when he did that, Ron Moorhead, because I was like, because, that's his way of, you'll never get in an argument with that guy. You will never go toe to toe in an argument with that guy because you can't win, because he'll come back with, yeah, you could be right. You could be right.
Well, he's right, because there is no right or wrong. We don't know. We don't have one in captivity where we can study. So who knows? Who knows what they are? Aliens, damn dirty ape. We don't know. Don't know.
Yeah, I'd feel better. I'd feel better thinking it was an ape out there running around the woods, but I don't think it is.
I would too, but no, I don't think they are. And this is the reason I don't think they are an ape. Because if there were an ape, I think we would have had one in captivity by now. These things have been around since, the time of Vikings. Leif Erikson wrote, that he's seen giants. So if there was a stinking ape just running around in the woods of the Pacific Northwest, New England, anywhere, we would have been able to capture one.
Catch it by now, yeah.
But they're elusive. They're very, very intelligent, to the point of being creepy. How intelligent
I agree.
They are.
They're intelligent. You're absolutely right. They're intelligent to the point of being creepy. And I was thinking about when I had MK Davis on, and he had those people who had these things on their property. Well, they'd set up cameras all over this property to try and get pictures of them. They could never get a picture of anything. They would hear it walk up behind the camera, tap on it and stuff. And it wasn't until they started setting up mirrors and they had like VHS cameras, and they were pointing them towards the mirrors, and the mirrors were pointed outside, they started getting these things. That's a little odd to me. That's a little strange. Why is it when you start putting up game cams around your home, all of a sudden they scatter? They're no longer, that seems odd to me. There's something not right about that. And I agree, to the point of being creepy. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, very, very creepy. We'll never, I guess I won't say we'll never know, but it's going to be a while before we figure these things out, I think, before we do capture one, and if we ever do. I don't know. I've got a lot of theories about the government and having their own, but that would be a whole nother different show.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say that. I was going to say you could go down a huge rabbit hole with why we haven't caught up with them, and I think the government has a lot to do with that, which it should raise up more eyebrows than anything else, because if it was nothing more than a monkey, I don't think the government would care. I think they would be like, there's a monkey.
I thought that same thing. Why? If it was a monkey running around the Pacific Northwest, why is the government going to care? they'd say, "Oh yeah, there's a monkey in the Pacific Northwest. Done. Story's over. Congratulations, that's your Bigfoot." But no, they try to sweep it under the carpet. They try to hide it, and that's what makes it more mysterious. Is why are they doing it? You know what? There's got to be something more to these things than just being a monkey.
I agree, and the other thing too is people say, well, it'll cause widespread panic. Well, a cougar can kill you just as quick as a Sasquatch can. We got a major cougar problem out here in the Pacific Northwest. You're not going to go toe to toe with a cougar, and same thing with black bears out here. There's a lot of things in the woods that can get you, and so I don't buy into. Anyway, that's a whole different conversation. But I tend to agree with you, Frederick. I think there's more to them, and I think when you start looking at the weird cover-up, how there's a lot of correlations between that and the alien cover-up tactics that they use. Yeah. Makes you really wonder. Makes you question a lot of things.
Yeah, I've wondered that too. Where if they're not possibly tied together, the whole Bigfoot and alien thing.
I hope not. I said, I'd feel better knowing it's a monkey.
Yeah, me too. But I have a feeling that it's not. But. We could hope.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming on, Frederick. I really enjoyed it. Like I said, hearing.
Yeah. Thank you.
There's not a lot of encounters to where it looks like a baboon. There are some though, and I know for the longest time I always thought, well, maybe that's what the dog man is. This baboon-looking Sasquatch. But when you talk to someone who ran into the dog man, it's not even the details don't match up. You're talking apples and oranges. No. But there's people that see what you saw. A lot of people have seen what you saw. And it disturbs a lot of people because it's, like we mentioned before, it's not Patty. And that's what a lot of people are expecting to see. And that's, couldn't be further from what they're seeing. But I appreciate you taking the time to come on and share your encounter. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for having me. And I just hope that more New Englanders do decide to share the story. I do know that there have been more sightings in this area, and people just need to feel that they're not going to get made fun of. Just come out, share your story. This is a safe place to do so. So please do it.
I couldn't agree more. Thank you again, Frederick.
Thank you. Good talking with you.
Yeah, it was good talking to you too. And I know last week I ran out of time for Tony Merkel. I think he's been waiting in queue for like 50 minutes or something. Let's go ahead and bring him on now. It looks like he hung up. Let me see if I can call him back here.
Thanks for calling Pizza Hut. My name's Chris. That's for pickup or delivery.
Hey, Chris. Sorry, I meant to call someone else. It's actually for pickup.
Okay, one sec. And what's the good phone number for you? Okay, and first name?
Wes.
All right, what can we get started for you?
Hey, I was wondering, could I get a large meat lovers on pan crust?
Okay, large pan crust meat lover. Any extra cheese on that pizza today?
Sure.
Okay. And then do we need any breadsticks, sodas, or desserts to go along with this, or just that one pizza?
Just the pizza's good.
All right. So it looks like altogether today, the large pan meat lover extra cheese, we have $24.92, and we can have it ready to pick up in about 12 minutes.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Not a problem. Have a great day.
You too. Oh, it actually looks like Tony Merkel from the Confessionals podcast didn't hang up. Oopsie. Let me see if I can get him here.
Dude, you ordered a pizza. Whenever I call in, it's always line 2. Line 2. You did that on purpose. Are you serious? You ordered a pizza on my time.
I was hungry, man.
I don't care if you were hungry. You did that on purpose. You're trying to make me look stupid in front of everybody. And on Sasquatch Chronicles, you got this whole huge following, and you're trying to make me look stupid in front of the whole world. You literally called Pizza Hut and ordered a pizza. I'm always on line 2. That wasn't a mistake. You did that on purpose, dude.
Well, sorry, man. I guess I shouldn't have milked that call to Pizza Hut.
Whatever.
I'm going to go ahead and put you back on hold here.
Whatever.
Oopsie.